So all of us are settled and all of us are in. So good to hear. And I hope you all are safe and sound wherever you are. Thank you so much for taking the time to join this webinar. I think it's very critical that we talk about what is happening in the world of HR, especially in the world of hybrid models that COVID has struck upon us. And I have a very distinguished panel with us today. Just to before I start the conversation, my name is Deval Singh. I am a part of the staffing team in TeamLease, and I largely run the telecom and the technology sector when it comes to my verticals in TeamLease. And I have a distinguished panel. It's kind of a mix of telecom and tech. I thought it was superb to get you all in together because both of you are booming right now. Both of you, I'm hoping, are doing quite well for the fact that COVID has accelerated the growth of these verticals. Having said that, I would love to hear from each one of you on what your views are when it comes to talent strategies in this world, in the world that has been stuck with COVID. All right, so before we start anything forward, let me introduce the panel and let me introduce you guys to each other so that you can kind of have a good conversation, kind of take insights and good views from each other. I have Shivesh Kundan, who is the Vice President of Talent Acquisition from 24/7 AI. He has 25 years of experience and plethora of knowledge when it comes to the world of HR. I have Sunila, who is the VP and Head of R&D Solutions at Equa. Again, she has tremendous knowledge when it comes to HR and the world that we are living in right now. And I believe that she can get a lot on the table when it comes to giving us insights about the trends that we are facing. I have Kavita, who is the global head of UST. Kavita, I'm just going to call it UST. I know you wanted that correction. I mean, again, I find it really brilliant that I have two women on this panel who are running the show, just like Kavita, who has a plethora of experience and come with a strong banking knowledge. I mean, I just heard you talk about JP Morgan experience, so on and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to picking your brain on this topic. And I have Ankur, a very dear colleague of mine that I work with, and 15 years of experience in the world of HR. And of course, right now, he's a part of one of the biggest brands when it comes to the telecom sector. So thank you so much, all of you, for making time again to come here. And I look forward to this conversation that I'm going to have with you. Alrighty, so let's pick the easiest question, the question which is quite easy, but then it can go in so many directions that I would love to kind of hear your opinions. What are the trends that you're looking at right now when it comes to different business models and different strategies that companies are adapting to or adopting to when it comes to talent acquisition or when it comes to the way we are working, whether it's hybrid models, whether it's work from home, whether it's gig? What is that you're looking at that you believe is here to stay and will define the future of the HR world? Can we start maybe with Shivesh first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Deval, and thanks for that introduction. So really speaking, before we get into, talking about the trends, currently prevailing, let's take a few steps back and dwell upon this entire, hybrid workforce or workplace. Till early 2020, most of the companies like ours and, many other corporates, we were toggling with the thought of, exploring hybrid models. Little did we realize that almost in no time, this nascent thought from the drawing board will get transformed into reality. And, we'll just not get any time to think. And come April 20, and we were not only hiring remotely, we were running our entire business on this model. Suddenly, I think within a span of 1 or 2 months, the landscape changed. We were, back on our drawing boards, shifting systems from our office to, our employees' homes and so on and so forth. And, it's not only about the corporates, but I think the employees and the talent pool also responded in the same manner. And initial 1 week into pandemic and all, while we were kind of jittery about revenue projections, how will it pan out? Will we be somewhere near our projected revenue? But suddenly, 1 month, 1.5 months down the line, we were kind of, into the thick of it. Most of our clients, especially from US and UK and Australia, they were, asking for more and more support because people were moving out, from like a retail space, and the customer care business was kind of booming for most of the industries, minus some specific ones like airlines and hospitality and all. So overall, yeah, suddenly it catapulted us into a different kind of zone. Were we prepared? Maybe not. But did we take time to prepare ourselves? No. I think most of us, since we were uh, talking about it, so we got into the action, and the basic thought was that okay, even if we fail, let's fail fast and fail cheap, so that we are able to take care of our customers, our clients. And for our clients, what was really critical was that we take care of their data security. And yes, suddenly we were into it. From talent acquisition perspective, it kind of while the market shrunk in a way, but it opened up. The talent pool opened up. Suddenly we were looking at different kind of profiles which we were not into hiring earlier. And everything, the new normal from talent acquisition perspective, completely changed the way we used to assess candidates, the way we used to interview candidates, the way we used to verify documents, background verification, and whatnot. Everything became remote. And well, we ended our year, with more than 100% hike in terms of our hiring numbers. So yeah, it gave us a challenge, and I think most of the corporates, especially in the ITES sector, telecom sector, we were able to grab it with both hands.
Brilliant. That's good to hear, Shivesh. Kavita, would you have any story around that, like that you faced in the last year or so, when it comes to dealing with these trends that have emerged with the COVID world?
I think one of, while I agree completely with whatever Shivesh has said, and he's laid a nice foundation for all of us to just build on. I think one of the things that really started standing up is the shift in behaviors of people that have come up because of the pandemic and the impact that it's had on all of our personal lives as well, right? So work has now become a subset of life. So you really cannot no longer look at curate employee experiences, but look at curating employee life experiences. And you need to bring that into right from the hire to retire framework that we had. It's no longer to say, hey, at work, this is what you will do, but try and bring in there what's important for the employee from a life perspective and bring that in various aspects into the organizational threads as well. And, involve the family in a lot of conversations, celebrations, and just make them aware of what's going on, right? For example, what we've done is try and created quiet hours for employees, right? Saying that, hey, this is the kind of, and depending on your account and your comfort, take these times out where you get to spend time with your family. It could be maybe having a meal together. It could be of certain mothers who are working, right? They are like, can we get, in the morning half hour off and half hour off in the evening when school starts and school's end, so we can be with the kids and, put them onto some other activity. It's very difficult to get onto meetings then. So just identifying what might be challenges, because it is very challenging, right? India as a society wasn't really ready for work from home. We never had home offices set up. We always kept those two aspects very, very distinct. You stayed at home, then you went out to work, and then you came back home where things were fine and everything went back to normal, right? Now with everything mixing up and becoming this huge cocktail, it's becoming exceedingly difficult for people to manage, especially the women, right? And we are doing all that we can to really ensure that that section of the workforce do not drop out, because managing the home, managing work, and making sure that we can support them in whatever way we can so that they continue to stay engaged with what they are doing. From an acquisition specifically, I think it's like the entire financial planning business, right? Initially, when you wanted to do an investment, you just walked into the bank and blindly did whatever the branch manager asked you to. Whereas today you're very well aware of which mutual fund, and you are able to question the banker a lot more because you're more aware. I think the same things happened in the talent acquisition space, right? The talent are now aware of what they need to ask organizations, and they're very candid in what is it that they want to bring out of that entire work experience. They aren't looking really at loyalty and building tenure, but saying, I'm working because these are certain life goals I want to meet, and how can you really help me meet those life goals? So it's changed the conversation into a large context where you're really making an effort to impress the talent as much as the talent is making an effort to impress you to get them on board. So it is a very collaborative conversation where you're trying to see where the best fit really works.
Brilliant, Kavita. I love it that you got the behavioral angle when it comes to discussing the trends of the hybrid world that we are living in right now. So, Neela, what would be your opinion, on this, the trends that you're seeing that are emerging right now, and how do you see it impacting in the long term when it comes to corporates and businesses?
Thank you so much for that question, and thanks also for the invite to be here, Deval. So I think COVID-19 really, forced us to move out of status quo, which, thinking in hindsight was not really a bad thing, because it has brought in the workplace the much needed flexibility. In my organization, for example, I started making people home-based as long back as 2008, much against a lot of resistance. So, being an organization that is very widespread, we had begun this in, small, I would say small percentages here and there. But now with COVID, this has become a norm. And that is actually presenting a lot of opportunities. I mean, from specifically talking from the talent acquisition point of view. Today, for certain roles at least, I need not be only fixated on locations where I have offices. For example, I can, go any nook and corner of the country to get the talent that I want. So that just opens up so many possibilities for us as well as for the future employees. And that's, one really very welcome trend, I feel. The other thing, which is very, again, interesting to see, and Kavita also alluded to this a little bit, is that just as we are evaluating our future employees, they are looking at the organization and they're asking questions like, okay, what is it that you're offering in terms of flexibility? Will I have the flexibility to work from home? And people are actually, when they have a choice, they are choosing an organization which has this whole future of peace better sorted out, where there's a better flexibility in terms of working from home, at least partly, even post pandemic, where there's more flexibility on the work hours. So that's, emerging, and that's something I think all organizations have to be cognizant of, and make sure that we give a feel and a sense of it to the candidates when, we are actually evaluating them, to be mindful that they are evaluating us as well. And specifically talking from the employee front, the other strong trend that has emerged, I think, which again, I think we as business managers or HR heads have to be cognizant of, is that people are not used to this construct. I mean, people are facing, people are facing this for the first time, that they don't see their line manager for a long time. They don't have anyone from their team to be used as a sounding board, where you just go walk across to your colleague with a cup of coffee and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and what do you think? So that comfort level has suddenly gone. And how can we actually create virtual kind of platforms where they still get the benefit, while they can get the benefit of working remotely, they don't lose the benefit of connecting with people. And then, the second wave especially has been very hard on, most of us. I mean, for the first wave, what most of us heard were numbers, that these are the number of COVID cases. Now we are hearing of people we know. That's quite taxing for people. And, we have to make sure that in all this, whether we are talking of talent acquisition or talent retaining, how do we create that emotional safety net for the employees? That's going to be a very, very key criteria for organizations to think of. So yeah, these are some of the trends which I think are important and something for us to take note of. Thank you.
Absolutely, Sunila. Thank you so much for sharing your views on it. Ankur, telecom in Bharti Airtel has been hiring quite a bit, and with the world that we are living in right now, there's so much work that you might have to do even more when it comes to acquiring talent. So, what are your views when it comes to these trends that you are seeing, or you think you keep seeing now that COVID is not going to just vanish? I'm sure all of us are aware, right? There is a pre-COVID world. There is a world that we are living in, which is the COVID world. And I do not know if there is going to be a post-COVID world, right? And I do not know how far that is. So, Ankur, what are your views on these trends and how long do you see them staying with us?
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Devil, first of all. And I think very interesting points made by others. I'll just build on those points. I think the fundamental thing that we have seen changing is the customer behaviors with this pandemic. And when I say customer behaviors are evolving, the customers who used to come to the store, to my retail store to purchase a SIM card or get a recharge done, is no longer comfortable coming to the store. So what does that mean from a business model perspective? I think we are moving towards an omni-channel model as a company. When I say that we want to serve customers at home, right? We want to serve them through different online mediums, platforms. So this is one fundamental shift that we have seen in the entire business landscape over here. What does that mean from an employee's perspective? I think one is very clearly the skill sets that you need to deliver in a new fashion or in a new model. You need a different set of skill sets, right? So I think so the upskilling and the cross skilling is something that we have seen, which is one of the big changes. And let me tell you, this is evolving. So there is absolutely no black and white direction around it. That so this is continuously evolving as the customer needs are changing. Second is, I think, big change that we have seen is how do we ensure business continuity with safety of the employees. So if they're going home and serving customers and all that stuff, I think typically how do you ensure their well-being while ensuring that the business safety is there. So one big fundamental change that I have seen is that we are no longer talking only about customer experience, but we also started talking about employee experience. So this is one big change, whether it's a mental well-being that you talk about, whether it is their physical safety, whether it is the feeling of inclusion, because they are working remotely, they are working from hybrid workplaces. Are they feeling included? Are they feeling fair and part of the larger team? How are we engaging them? All those things have taken a lot of share of the mind share because of this entire change which has happened very, very clearly, right? And I think last thing I would like to say is the point which Sunila made, which is the mental well-being. Because the change is so rapid and there's so much of uncertainty, the psychological well-being of the people is very, very critical, and that requires a lot of proactive steps from the company. You give them platforms to speak. How are you listening to their problems? How are we addressing? So all those things are very, very important that we are very, very clearly seeing, right? Yeah.
No, absolutely, Ankur. And I think you pretty much are now leading to my next question, which is something that you've already kind of hoovered upon, is the landscape of L&D. So how do you guys see it evolving in your organizations? Because absolutely, Ankur, I mean, the skill sets are changing. They're ever evolving. While they were always ever evolving, even in the past, but now we've been hit upon the word of digitization, right? And now you have this talent who might or might not know how to maneuver it. So how is your L&D landscape changing, Ankur, when it comes to fitting the two or matching the two?
Yeah, I think first of all, the entire setup has changed. So there used to be a time when we used to get people in a classroom setup or an instructor-led training setup, and you used to impart a training to them. And I think that used to give a lot of experience also to the people. It was also about networking, collaboration, people from different teams coming together, intermingling, sharing their knowledge. I think those were a lot of larger purposes and objectives behind those training programs. All that is not possible right now in the new setup, right? So the one change that I've seen in learning is becoming more self-centric. When I say it's becoming more self-centric, I think we can provide resources to you, we can guide you, we can motivate you, we can give time, provide ample bandwidth to you, but I think it will have to be anchored by the individuals. So how do you create that environment where the person, besides his normal day-to-day work that he is doing at home, or from the remote location that the person is working, is he is investing time in those training programs. Second big piece change that I'm seen in the training landscape is the effectiveness of trainings. In a classroom setup, there used to be consistency in the set because there used to be one instructor who's providing training to the set of people. So you were at least you had certainty around and you had clarity around the quality of the training program. Now with different people taking training programs at their own pace, at their own flexibility, what is the impact that the training program is making on them is the second piece which needs to be measured differently now, right? At an individual level, because training is going to be more personalized now rather than being a mass training, right? So these are a couple of things that we are looking at, and more so towards the digital side. So soft skills are very important. I'm not saying they're not important, but we have also seen a lot of interest in the digital side of the world, the new technologies. People are wanting to make themselves relevant. by taking these programs for the future landscape. So these are some of the changes that we've seen.
No, absolutely. I agree with you, especially on the digitalization side of the world, Ankur. I'm sure just every organization is going through a change in learning models. So, Neela, what would your opinions be when it comes to your, landscape at your organization, the learning landscape?
Sure, they will. So for us specifically, coming from more of a, technology and research side, the technical training becomes extremely important. And without that, we cannot even do some of the things. But what is also very important is the soft skill training. And the paradigm has changed. I mean, all organizations, I'm sure, were doing some bit of e-learning before this or before the pandemic also. But as Ankur very rightly put, nothing can replace that instructor-led classroom training where you interact. Most of our adult learning is actually, learning through experience sharing and interaction. I mean, as adults, we don't learn from textbooks anymore. And the challenge has been how do we build that element, especially when it comes to soft skill training, because technical training, which is, necessary for the job, people will still do the e-learning and and they'll do it. But taking some of the very soft aspects, like how to build effective teams, for example, how do you do it in this kind of an environment where the training has to be very, very interactive. So we are kind of trying to create that classroom right environment, working virtually using video conferences. The technology upgradation has actually helped a great deal in this. I mean, today we are doing this webinar so seamlessly, sitting in the comfort of our own homes, and that's the principle we are also bringing to the learning and development aspects. I mean, technical training, we are still leaving it for people to do, but the soft skill aspect of it, we are insistent that this is done in a virtual interactive model. We're creating platforms for sharing thoughts, for sharing ideas, where people can come forward and sort of share what they have in mind. And the bigger aspect has also been I mean, especially for the managers, is how to effectively manage your teams remotely when people have their own personal challenges. People have challenges of coping up, people have infrastructure related challenges. I mean, see, if you look at the city of Mumbai, for example, not many of the homes will actually have the comfort for, if you have a working couple, having two rooms even where they can work seamlessly. So all these challenges, have to be dealt with, and managers need to have that empathy and, ability to deal with it. So I think it's important, and, that organization takes some steps. They create these virtual platforms, virtual forums, where a lot of emphasis is given on soft skills. Because what I saw happening was, in the first year, everybody was so busy dealing with the aftermath of COVID that what took the hit the most was the L&D, because the whole emphasis for every business, whether it was clinical research or technology or data business, the whole emphasis was, okay, how do we keep the shop running? That took the kind of center stage, and L&D took little bit of a backstage, which I'm sure is true for many organizations at different levels. So I think now the emphasis needs to come back, and we have to see how we use the technology to the fullest, so that the human connect in L&D, which is a key element and the key, I would say, vehicle of learning, is not lost. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I hear you, Sunila. So, Kavita, would you kind of agree to that opinion that L&D kind of took a back step because of the aftermath of the first wave, or would you have a different opinion per se? And maybe you want to elaborate a little bit about what do you think about the learning landscape in your organization and how it's evolving?
So agree with what Sunila and Ankur are saying, but at least at UST we didn't see learning take a backseat at all. Right? We saw it escalate and take a much larger dimension, if anything else. Learning in the digital context has always been something that we were driving and doing to a large extent at UST, especially from a technical learning standpoint, especially because we are across the globe and it's a little difficult to do virtually, instructor-led trainings if it's only in a particular location. And at times you might just not have a cohort size for people in that particular location. So we have been driving a lot of online content. But one of the main shifts that I have seen now is that people are taking charge of learning, right? So they're not really waiting for the organization to customize and come up to you and say, hey, this is what you need to learn. They are going and doing a lot of learning on their own, whether it's on platforms like LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, Pluralsight, or from their peers or on the job. There is learning happening. It might not be captured or structured in the format that would make sense for a learning professional to analyze and say, hey, these many hours were done and hence this is the output. But there is a lot of learning happening. And I think learning agility is quickly becoming one of the core competencies that is being viewed as critical for high potential performers, right? So you see that standing out very, very clearly. The ones who are able to learn, unlearn, relearn new technologies, new aspects. So, for example, when we started the first wave, one of the first programs we rolled out across the organization was called digital behaviors, right? On digital behaviors, we called it DigiB, and we said that you need to continue doing every single thing you were doing when you were in the office and coming in with your team, but in a digital context. But we understood that the managers might not be able to make those transitions easily, so we created toolkits. We ran them through sessions saying, use this, right? Don't try and create things on your own. That's not what you're here for. So we'll give you all the tools, but you need to implement it so it makes your life easier. So I think those are some of the very critical nuances that are taking place, right? And people taking charge of their own learning. We are making the shift from training to learning, right? Where people are saying, if we do not learn on our own, then the organization might identify something for us which might not be right for us. It's not, again, my own journey. And it goes back to the earlier question where people are now deciding how their career graphs need to look like. What are the roles they need to do? What is the destination they really want to reach, right? They're not really dependent on saying, oh, if my manager promotes me, then I'll become my manager and then my manager's manager. And that's the path I need to go on. There is a lot of cross-functional mobility taking place. So how do you really make those shifts? So we have a tool called Career Velocity at UST that we have developed, which upfront tells employees, put in all your skills, put in your learning aspirations, but put in your career aspirations as well. And the tool really tells you, hey, if you continue on the path you are, these are 3 or 4 paths that you can follow, and this is how you can become successful. But if you choose a role, so for example, if today I'm in HR and I want to become I want to become a cloud architect. I can go and say, I want to become a cloud architect, and the system will then throw up paths for me, which will say, these are the 5 roles that you need to do to become a cloud architect. These are the certifications you need to complete. These are the skills you need to pick up. So then it allows me to craft my journey. And when I'm ready, there is a marketplace available. The moment there is a cloud architect opening, if I have done all of those steps, I automatically get notified of those openings that are there in the system. The managers are made aware that saying, hey, Kavita is interested in becoming a cloud architect. She's done the work, she's put in all the hours required, and she's eligible for this move, and it allows my movement. So then you're using learning almost as a hook to create retention within the organization and telling people, build careers with us, right? It is not just a job that you're doing, but a long-term solution for you that's win-win for both you as well as for the organization.
No, absolutely, Kavita. That's a very cool take on learning. And I mean, that's a brilliant way to put it too. So, Shivesh, how would you air your opinion when it comes to the learning landscape, and where do you sit at when it comes to the way you view the evolving skill sets in this world?
So, the beauty of speaking on one topic, after 3 of your panelists have already spoken, is that you get the best of both the worlds. So I think I would agree with Kavita. I would also agree with Ankur and Sunila. Ankur spoke about, and Sunila also emphasized on the impact of classroom training, and how we move from that to a self-learning kind of a mode. I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that while we were looking at the efficacy of classroom training, the paradigm shift was that in a classroom training, you have front benchers and back benchers. In this kind of a scenario, everybody is a front bencher. So you are there, you have no other option but to participate. And yes, the owners also moved from a trainer to a learner, as in how much I can inculcate. I mean, if I'm not attentive, it's a complete waste of time for all of us. And like Kavita mentioned, especially in our kind of industry also, training never took a backseat. Right from the word go, they were kind of trying to figure out how will it happen, because we all were concerned about the efficacy of training, because we are programmed to think like that. Okay, what happens when we move out of that, because we are not able to we are not getting those vibes from body language. How is it working? Is it working fine? So especially in our kind of an organization, training was and always be a very, very will play a very pivotal role. In our setup, yes, right from the word go, training teams were figuring out the efficacy of the modules, what tweaking is required, how can we ensure that the sessions are interactive, because otherwise you lose the interest very fast. And that was, I think, the key word, that how to grab that attention, that even when people are not in the office, they are not able to talk to each other, they are not able to share your thoughts with their colleagues. Maybe at times you whisper, you pass notes, and so on and so forth. But I think in our organization, gamification was something which was really picked up beautifully by the training team, and it gave us very rich dividends. So to speak, really speaking, in the 24/7.ai, our training team was recognized. Last year they won about 4 awards. This year also they've started that stride, and industry is recognizing the way they are, being innovative. They have started a series called Think Watson Think, which is again keeping the agents on their toes, ensuring that everybody is getting involved. And I think not only L&D per se, but organization development also played a pivotal role while these guys were inside the system, even before we hired them, because we realized very soon that once they are a part of the system in this kind of a scenario, they'll need to deal with different kind of issues. They are working alone, not being supervised. There would be behavioral issues, challenges. So our OD team created a beautiful psychometric assessment, which we utilized even before we got these guys on board. That are these guys kind of will they be able to keep themselves motivated? Will they be able to work with minimal supervision? Do they need a Hawkeye while they're, because generally the kind of population we are dealing with, they are kind of used to it. I mean, let's keep it very candid. We are kind of used to it, because we used to keep things under control. So it was a paradigm shift, and I think the L&D team, the OD team at 24/7, they worked wonders to ensure that our business did not take a hit. And like I said, contrary to our own thoughts, we exceeded our revenue projections for last year, and this year again we are keeping our fingers crossed.
Brilliant to hear that, Shivesh. So before I move to the next question to Ankur, I want to tell the audience, if you have any questions for the panel, please feel free to post so that I can ask them in some time. So Ankur, I'm specifically going to ask you this, guys, if I don't ask this question, I don't think the session would be complete. Ankar, what's your view about the gig economy or the gig world? I mean, that, these guys have kept us quite alive and beating during the COVID times, right? I mean, whether it was essential goods, whether it was non-essential goods, the gig workers were very, very upfront, helping us through to get over it or get, kind of get the things that we need in our day-to-day lives. And the government did give them those exemptions to ensure that while you do not step out of your house, anything and everything that you need will come to you. So this model really, really worked well, and it actually kind of got, it became a part of our life. Now it's not a big deal for us to do that, right? So what is your opinion about the gig world and, all of that, this revolving around us right now when it comes to talent acquisitions?
Yeah, I think I would want to step back and tell you that the entire work model or the business model has become very, very fluid and flexible now, with the changes in the environment, right? Gone are the days when we used to have 12 months project, 15 months project, and you used to put a dedicated team around that project, right, to work on that. So long-term horizons are getting challenged now with all the changes which are happening. This is one piece. Second is this entire flexibility which is required and the fluidity which is required to deliver at work. I think gig gig workers or freelancers or contractual specialists, I think they bring that expertise, they give you that expertise, and then they can also utilize that expertise for other clients. So then they're not bounded by you, because you also don't need a 24/7 service, right? You would also, depending on the work volumes, you would need a service for a certain volume or certain time. So I think it's a win-win from a company and the other community perspective. I think government is yet to formalize a policy around gig worker. I think the work is still on. They have not still kind of finalized it. But I see this share of workforce segment going up. Because one is they bring multivariated skill sets. Second is some of them bring specialized skill sets. Which wherein through their effectiveness and through their experience they can provide you that kind of value, and an organization they can step out, right? And so that's my take on this. I think contractual working and specialist working, and especially the gig economy, which gives a lot of flexibility to the workforce also, because then they are not bounded to work with you for 9 hours. They can possibly work few hours with you, and then the rest of the time they can utilize for other things that they want to do. I think it's something which is the trend is only going to pick up from here, is what I foresee, honestly.
Absolutely. And Kavita, what is your opinion about it? When this whole gig model started, people working the way they want to work, whenever they want to work, there was a bit of a backlash, right? People did not understand, like, how does that even work? When it comes to the model, how do you actually legitimize it, right? But now it is a part of, basically most of the organizations. So what is your opinion about it?
I think the gig model is here to stay. We won't really be able to do away with it. I think the younger generation have realized in their own context, right, that they'll be able to do multiple jobs to match multiple passions, and at the same and end up making the same amount of money rather than work one job and follow just one passion or one liking, right? So it's also a great way for them to manage their aspirations, their parents' aspirations, and society's aspirations, right? So you can say, hey, my morning job is to match my, all the education that I have received, and in the afternoon I work for a job so that my parents, can talk about amongst family and say, hey, this is a great job my son and daughter does, and in the evening I get to go and be an RJ or a DJ, and that is something that I'm going to fulfill my own passion. I think as organizations we need to start being a lot more accepting to this, right? So as much as we talk about gender diversity and inclusion, I think this becomes a large part of inclusion in a very broad sense, where we start looking, and as I said in one of the earlier questions, right, work has become a subset of life, and for them it is bringing it in every aspect of life and taking it to the next level. So how do you really showcase a workplace to them that will appreciate their wholeness and not just their technical qualifications or the what's in it for the organization that they can bring to the table? If you're able to do that, I think the gig economy will work really well, especially in the tech space, where a lot of the tech companies would also do a lot of work for their external clients, right? So you would do work. So it's not just the tech company that really needs to buy into the entire format, but also their clients, where they're not insisting saying, I want someone who will work from a particular time to a particular time and just do these 10 tasks and nothing else. So we need to change our vision of what work really looks like, what the outcomes of that work would be. I think data-based decision making with a lot of human-centered emotion, try and bring that together in not just our hiring and outsourcing models, but also in a way that we start looking at the way we work ourselves, right? And we need to start creating some role models across the entire paradigm of a career, so that people who are working in a gig economy are not just relegated to doing one job for the rest of their life, or three different jobs but just that same job, right? They will also need to see progression and changes in that way, and that would only happen if it gets integrated into the work culture of an organization.
No, absolutely. Very well put, Kavita. Shivesh, what would be your opinion? I mean, Ankur was talking about how contract staffing is a win-win for, both the partners that are involved in. How, Kavita was talking about the influence it has holistically when it comes to people's careers. What do you think about this gig economy trend that is kind of taking over most of the models?
So there was one thing is for sure, that gig economy, whether you like it or not, it's here to stay. And sooner or later, organizations will need to adapt to it. And not only organizations, but I think Ankur was also talking about the government policies. Our, in India, our labor laws. Is it, talking about it, with the same kind of rigor? Uh, uh, I mean, to my mind, at this juncture, the policies and even corporates, we are learning. We are, but like I said, sooner or better, sooner or later, we'll really need to keep up the pace. The labor policies will need to support people working with multiple organizations. Why only as contractors? Why not on payrolls and so on and so forth? But yeah, definitely it has opened up the market. I remember towards May last year, we were talking about it, and we went out in the market trying to source a different kind of profiles. We were elated to understand that we had not only students who would really want to spend time and spend time basis their availability. We had homemakers who had to opt out of their regular jobs because they had to take care of small kids and their family and so on and so forth. The most surprising one was that we had veterans who wanted to invest their time in a right kind of manner. Maybe not it was not only about the money, but about utilizing their time in a better way. So these are just 2-3 kind of profiles that I spoke about. But yeah, I think the kind of a promise the entire gig piece has. I think it's better that we align ourselves to it, and definitely government will need to reciprocate by supporting through the policy.
No, I think it goes back to the first question that I asked you, where most of you kind of said that it opens up a large audience for you to kind of capture new talent from, and I think it kind of rings on the same level. Sunila, would your opinion be on the same level? Is there anything in particular that you would want to add when it comes to gig workforce, and how do you see it evolving?
No, absolutely agree with all the panelists here. It's here to stay. And it's a good thing because it allows us to scale up and scale down. And, all of us, especially when you're on the service provider side, you're executing something on behalf of the customers. This is a welcome kind of an option. Engaging the workforce that is working in this model, I think that's where I think particular attention needs to be. And I think all organizations are again taking steps towards that. And a policy framework is very critical in my view, especially to make sure that we are appropriately managing the lack of conflict of interest. Let me put it that way, because there are also very specialized roles like biostatistics, for example, where we are looking at search work arrangements. So these people have access to a lot of confidential data. Let's say when I'm talking particularly from my point of view, where we're managing clinical research, drug development, and highly specialized domains. So I think a strong policy framework and a strong engagement framework is, I think, something for the organizations to look for sure. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I think formalization is something that we all want to make sure that comes into play when it comes to these workers. And I think you guys are airing the same common theme with your answers, which is great. So I think I'm going to ask you a very, very tricky question, and I would love to hear your opinion. I'll start with Kavita. Kavita, when do you think COVID is going to be over? How many quarters down the line? And I just want your general view about the world that we see right now we are in, and what the impact would it kind of leave behind when it comes to our organizations and when it comes to personal and professional. So yeah.
So I don't think COVID's going to go away anyway soon. It's going to be around in some shape, size, or format, impacting our personal and professional lives. Also, because I don't think as a species we have really realized the impact that it can have on our lives, right? It's only till recently that it was just a number happening somewhere to someone somewhere. It's the second wave that it's brought it really close to home, where no matter whom you speak to, there's someone in their friend or family cycle that's got impacted. So unless it really starts, and it has started hitting close to home, and that's when we have started to take even more precautions than we were in the first wave, right? So it's going to be around, it's going to be there, and it's going to mutate as well constantly. We're not going to see it go away. We aren't making any changes to our lifestyle, so that's
No,
going to be around.
so let me rephrase the question. Kavita, when do we go back to the pre-COVID level of growth?
No, I don't think there's been any change in the level of growth. That's going to be there. It was there as it was before. It's happened last year. It probably took a slight dip, but it's back on track again this year. I don't think business has really been impacted. That's happening. Work is going on, except for a few, maybe for the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, and industries where there's a travel industry. Except for those, I think the growth levels are back, and we are seeing a lot of movement. While there is a lot of motivation and engagement that needs to be done while we continue to work from home, there is still people who believe in that larger concept, right? So for example, at UST we are preparing to do an IPO in 2 years, and we would not have, the pandemic really doesn't phase our efforts in putting that out there and getting everything together, meeting our clients, and delivering over there. So that's going to happen, but it's important to also realize that on the personal front, a lot of priorities have changed for people. Ambition, career growth may not be as much as important as it was before COVID. People have started realizing that spending time with family, taking time out to follow your passions are equally important. So organizations need to recognize that and build that into their EVP, right? So ESG parameters are becoming of extreme importance today. People are asking that. To employers, saying, hey, what are you doing to make a difference to the world we live in, and how are you letting me be part of that change?
No, I hear you. Sunila, what would you say about this? Clearly Kavita believes that the growth is there and we are on track. What would your opinion be when it comes to growth of the country or of the organization? And when do we go back to the pre-COVID levels?
So I would agree with Kavita, and actually they will come talking about the sector that I represent, the clinical research and drug development. We have been inundated with work because, the whole vaccine development is a case in point here, right? Normally, it took us as a pharmaceutical industry to develop a vaccine. It took anywhere from 5 years to 25 years. And here a vaccine was out in, flat 1 year. You can imagine what that must have done to the researchers and, people who come from the sector that I represent. So it's been, very challenging time where we had to manage growth in this period of uncertainty with all the regional restrictions, lockdown and all. And I think this is here to stay because COVID will just go from a pandemic to endemic, meaning it's still going to exist in pockets. So we still have to have strategies to deal with it. I don't think we are ever going to go back to that, model where everybody works out of office. I think the future of workplace is going to be very different. It's going to be a combination of remote working and, really making sure that we give the people that flexibility. And we are going to continue to see growth. I mean, if you see our history as a human race, I think we genetically are programmed to kind of, overcome adversity. And this is what we've again proven in this whole COVID wave. So yes, there are going to be challenges, but I do believe growth will continue. There are certain industries which, Kavita rightly said, are having further impact, but, there also newer business models are evolving and they will continue to evolve. So I think it's just a matter of evolution in my view. Growth is going to continue for sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sunila. Ankur, how about you? Would you air the same opinion? Growth is there, everything is going fine, or do you believe there is going to be some space or time that we will need to go back to pre-COVID level when it comes to growth of the economy?
No, I think there's no denying the fact that some sectors have been hit. I think we have to acknowledge that there are certain industries which have been badly hit, especially customer-facing industries, industries like hospitality and these aviation. I mean, they are badly hit. And but I kind of must say that they are innovating. All industries are innovating, and the ones which have been hard hit are innovating even more because they are trying to adapt to this and come up with alternate revenue streams to make up for the business loss. They would need some time to come out of it. It will not happen overnight, but I think over a period of time, with the resilience, with the innovation, with the learnings, I think these industries will be able to cope up. Well, I don't see that any of the industries will become extinct because these are part of our life. So they have to adapt and they have to evolve. So this is a phase of evolution to my mind, Deval, and this is just a phase where we are learning, we are trying new things, and we are seeing what is working, what is not working for us. So I think I think it's a matter of time for us to come out of it, right? Yeah.
No, absolutely. So, Shivesh, if I were to make this question a little more tougher for you than the rest of them, who have not been able to tell me the timeline, do you think there is a timeline to that? I personally, if you ask me that question, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer. But yeah, trying my luck here. Do you think there is a timeline that you see per se when it comes to us going back to a pre-COVID world?
Yeah, they will for sure. I'm not saying that COVID is here to stay, but it has impacted our lives. Whether it's professional, personal, and the way we are going to, follow suit going forward, it's not going to be the same. So to my mind, well, I can't give you a timeline, but to my mind, there will not be a pre-COVID scenario that we'll be witnessing in our future. That is for sure. It's just that, individuals, corporates, governments, multiple organizations, they have already, adapted to this change. And this change will evolve. Like Kavita mentioned that, well, COVID might be over, but, there are different mutants and, different strains. Today, I was reading in the newspaper, there's a new Indian variant. So, while we are evolving, the virus is also evolving. And like I said, it might be there might be ups and downs, but our lives, our corporate lives, our personal lives will not be the same, and we'll be more cautious going forward. Impact, yes, overall industry has got impacted. No second thoughts about it. There are, specific industries which have got more impacted, and there are others who have got less impacted. Industry like ours or Sunila's, I think they've kind of benefited out of this, and because they were fast enough to evolve, and especially labor intensive industries like construction and other kind of manufacturing, they have got hit to a larger extent. There is a shift. The growth, well, it's not there uniform for all the industries, which was never the case. Earlier also, this was never the case. Even in today's kind of scenario, the growth, the definition of growth has changed for multiple organizations. And like Ankur mentioned, that people are adapting to it, right? So maybe, a pharma industry was preparing for, a different kind of solution earlier. Today, the focus has changed from, X to Y. And same is the, kind of solution for all industries. Like if you talk about hospitality has got hit, but overall the restaurant business, the food industry, they have kind of adapted. And demonetization gave us a growth of, Paytm. This time around, we've seen, organizations like Dunzo, Swiggy, Zomato, doing brisk business. So that's why I'm, saying that, okay, maybe there is a change in terms of growth. The definition has changed, but it's, here to stay in some way or other. I'm sorry, I could not give you a timeline.
That's okay. I like I said, I was just trying my luck. All right. So, Kavita, there's a question for you. I'm going to take some question and answer now that we are in the last 5 minutes of the conversation. Kavita, there's a question for you from Gauri. She says, I'm a learning and development professional working in an NGO called Transforming Rural India Foundation. Career Velocity is a very interesting platform. How has such a platform translated into employee motivation? What was the feedback from the employees?
So what we've essentially tried to do is, one, build a lot of networks within the ancillary HR processes, right? And not have them work in silos. So if it's talent management, then you link it to learning, you link it to gender diversity and inclusion, you link it to the HR BSE, compensation and all of that. So there are a lot of these networks that have got created. So every any process that you really go and connect yourself with, you get to see the whole picture and say, oh, this is the impact on my compensation if I do this. This is the impact on my learning, and vice versa. By setting up Career Velocity, what we've managed to do is democratize the entire learning process, the entire career management process, right? We have moved the onus completely from the managers, the HR team, and the organization to the employees, saying that you own where you want to go within the organization. There will still be gate conditions like maybe tenure and basic skill sets, but the rest of it is up to you, right? If you put in the work, you decide how you want to do it, you own it. I think that level of empowerment has worked to a very large extent, with people taking up a lot of initiative to realizing that, if someone tells me that, hey, if you do these 10 things, then this is what you will get, then it's up to me to decide whether I want to get that thing, and hence invest that time and energy into doing those 10 distinct articles. So the entire blame game that used to happen, saying, hey, as a manager saying, I recommended your name, but HR didn't do it, or HR saying your manager didn't give me the right kind of format, or, employees complaining, saying my manager is not my friend and doesn't like me and hence didn't promote me. We've done away with all of those conversations and focusing on the right kind of conversation. So we have performance coaches within the organization who have career conversations, saying, what is it that you need to do for your career? How do you have feedback conversations? How do you set goals for yourself to build visibility within the organization? So all of that has helped increase that. And I think the employees really like this approach. They were a bit skeptical as first, as all new processes, wondering how it'll all pan out. But I think as a couple of cycles have gone by, they've realized and seen the value of really investing in themselves and taking charge of their own careers rather than leaving it to a particular function within the organization to decide when they think that they are good enough to get promoted to the next role.
No, that's very good to hear, Kavita. Ankur, the second question is for you. When it comes to gig workers, which domain in your organization are you looking to hiring gig workers or contractual workers, and why in particular?
So this is still at a very nascent stage. First of all, it's not that it's still settling in. But when it comes to IT skills, specialist IT skills, I need a product on a database, for example, so I can get a database specialist to help us work on that. So those kind of specialist niche skills is where we look at, and I've seen more of this in the digital space, where you can get these kind of people to come to you for the required coding and help you come up with that whatever project is to be created, and then kind of step out. So that's where I've seen a lot of it happening as of now.
Great. I think we are very close to wrapping up the session, but before we go, I would still like to pick Sunila's brain on this, because the kind of work, Sunila, you do is very, very different. And in your organization, what kind of gig workers, are you hiring? If you are, that is.
Yeah, so there are broadly two components of the work we do. One is the actual management of the research, which happens in the hospitals and, which is much more intense. Unfortunately, this is not an area where we can look at gig workers, but then there's also a lot of back-end work in terms of collating and managing the data. So you have jobs such as data entry operators, you have data management specialists, biostatisticians, medical writers. Here is where there's a big opportunity for gig workers.
Brilliant. So that basically means that there is so much right now that gig workers can actually, apply to or kind of learn than what options they had before we got hit by COVID. It's brilliant to see. Shivesh, anything that you would like to add? We are pretty much at the end of a minute when it comes to gig workers and how you are hiring in your organization for what portfolios or what businesses.
So like Sunila mentioned, it's not that, gig worker is something, or gig economy is something which is kind of one, size fits all. So they will also need to be cut out for specific roles, and, there might be certain, roles wherein they might not fit, maybe because of the tenuity, because of the continuity, that the person might be, the position might be front-ending, a customer-facing role, and so on and so forth. So, in our organization also, to start with, the frontline volume hiring is where I can, straight away feel that there'll be a best fit. But yeah, I think this is evolving, and we'll have to keep an eye on this.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. So we are pretty much at the dot of 12, and I would want to once again thank you all for joining us, Sunila, Shivesh, Kavita, Ankur. It was brilliant. It was a great conversation with all of you. I'm hoping that the audience got to learn a lot, and you have a great day. Stay safe, and I look forward to interacting with you again in the future. Thank you so much.